You know when something feels wrong, but you can't quite explain why? That quiet gut-level unease that creeps in before your mind has caught up? That was me the night Kelly came home late again. We live in a modest house on a quiet street in Lafayette. Nothing fancy, nothing extravagant, just a small place with a rusted mailbox, a crooked front step, and a kitchen that always smells faintly like cinnamon, even when we haven't baked in months. That house had seen better days, sure, but it had also seen years of shared breakfasts, lazy Sunday mornings, and stupid inside jokes. Until lately, that house was ours. But that night, it felt like it belonged to someone else. It was nearly midnight. I was on the couch, still in my work clothes, holding her coat in my lap. She'd tossed it over the chair in the corner earlier that week. Tuesday, I think, after coming home from what she'd called a late client meeting. She was always tired after those now. Tired, distracted, smelling like a different perfume, the kind that lingers too long in a room after she walks out. It had become a pattern. At first, I told myself I was imagining it, that it was stress, that I was projecting, but the doubt never left. It just sat with me, quietly at first, then louder until I couldn't ignore it anymore. So I picked up her coat. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. A receipt? A hotel key card? I don't know. I felt like a crazy person, patting down the pockets of someone I loved like I was some low-budget detective. But then I saw it. A single strand of hair. Long curly, pale golden brown, not even close to Kelly's. Hers is jet black, pin straight, and cut bluntly at the shoulders. This one was nearly caramel-colored, with a soft curl like it had come from someone who spent time carefully styling it. I should have stopped there, but I didn't. When I turned the coat toward the light, I noticed a smudge on the inside of the collar. Lipstick. Red. Bright, bleeding red. Not the kind of color Kelly ever wears. She likes muted tones, soft beige, dusty pink, peach if she's feeling adventurous. This was different. It stood out like graffiti on a white wall. I held it up and stared at it like if I looked long enough it would change into something else. Like maybe it wasn't what I knew it was, but it didn't change. It just sat there, bold and unapologetic. My chest felt tight, like something invisible was pressing down on it. I could hear the blood pulsing in my ears. I went to the kitchen, grabbed a glass of water, then sat back down and stared at her coat some more. A piece of me still wanted to believe it meant nothing. Maybe a friend borrowed it. Maybe she brushed against someone at a bar. Maybe I was losing my mind. But then I opened my laptop. Her email was still logged in from the time she used it to print out some theater tickets a few weeks back. I hadn't touched it since. I knew it was wrong. I knew the line I was about to cross. But I crossed it anyway. The inbox was active. More active than I expected. I clicked open a message from someone named Trent W. It was a long thread, at least 24 messages. I scrolled through it slowly at first, then faster as each line hit harder than the last. It wasn't just flirting. It was deep, familiar, int asterisk mate. They weren't just talking. They were planning. There were pictures. Her in a blue dress I'd never seen before. Hair pinned up, glass of wine in hand. Her smile was different in those photos. Tilted, softer, looser, less guarded. And there was Trent. He looked like a stock photo of a man. Good hair, clean teeth, fitted button-up. One of those guys who always looks like he knows what you're thinking before you say it. He was standing behind her in some sh*ts, beside her in others, always close. Too close. Then I saw the reservation. It was a confirmation email for a beachside rental. 2 nights, Saturday through Monday. The same weekend she told me she'd be at a marketing conference in Austin. I looked at the date. It was last weekend. She'd come back Sunday night, smelling like ocean breeze and sunscreen, telling me about networking panels and elevator pitches. She even brought home a lanyard. I remember now it still had a crease in the plastic. It wasn't worn. She'd printed it herself. My stomach flipped. Not metaphorically. Literally. I had to stand up and lean against the doorframe to keep from gagging. The sound of the front door opening jolted me. Kelly was home. She walked in like nothing was wrong. Hair up, gym bag slung over one shoulder, keys dangling from her fingers. She saw me immediately, saw the laptop screen, the code in my hand, the glass of water, untouched. Her eyes scanned the room like she was taking inventory. And then she did the strangest thing. She smiled, just faintly, like she was trying to read whether I was angry or confused. Like she'd rehearsed this moment. She walked over and glanced at the screen. Her gaze barely flickered. "Oh," she said, her tone light, dismissive. "That? It's a joke. Brittany and I were messing around." "Messing around," I repeated. My voice sounded weird in my own ears, dry and quiet, like it belonged to someone else. "Yeah," she said, dropping her bag and moving toward the stairs. "We were trying to freak out her boyfriend. We made fake messages, fake confirmations. I guess I forgot to delete them." Her voice was calm. Even. Practiced. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. She started up the stairs, not even checking to see if I'd follow. No apology. No explanation. Not even an attempt to defend the hair or the lipstick. She just moved on. Like I wasn't there. Like the whole thing was some boring misunderstanding that didn't need to be talked about. I stood there, gripping the back of the couch, trying to steady myself. The silence that followed her up the stairs was so thick it felt like it could crush me. It wrapped around me, filling the room like smoke. I didn't move. I didn't call out to her. I didn't throw anything. I just stood there, code in one hand, laptop screen still glowing with her betrayal. There's this thing that happens in your head when you've been lied to so deeply, it's like your memories start rearranging themselves. Little moments flash back, things you didn't think twice about at the time, but now feel like clues in a mystery you never realized you were part of. That night, I stood there for what felt like hours. Listening to the silence. Watching shadows move across the wall. Wondering how many lies I had believed simply because I trusted her. Because I loved her. And she walked upstairs like none of it mattered. That was the night everything changed. And she didn't even have the decency to pretend to be sorry. After Kelly went upstairs that night, after the half-hearted explanation and the staircase silence that followed, I didn't move. I couldn't. I just sat on the couch, coat still in my lap, computer still glowing with the truth she never tried to deny. It wasn't the kind of truth that explodes, it creeps in. Quiet. Cold. It settles in your bones before your brain even registers what's happening. I don't remember falling asleep. I must have at some point because the next thing I knew, sunlight was bleeding through the blinds and my neck ached like hell. I sat up slowly, blinked hard, and stared around the living room like I was waking up in a stranger's house. That's when the timeline started building itself in my head. One moment clicked into the next, like beads on a string. None of it made sense in isolation. But altogether? It was too perfect. Kelly started waking up earlier a few months ago. That was the first thing. She used to sleep late on weekends. God, she loved her lazy Sundays. I'd wake up before her, make coffee, and sit on the porch until she shuffled out in my hoodie and stole the mug from my hands. That stopped around January. Suddenly she was the one up first. Said she needed air, needed to stretch, needed me time. I didn't think much of it. I figured she was finding new routines, trying to center herself. That was her word, center. But looking back, there were days when I'd roll over around 6:30 a.m. and realize she was already gone. Once I even got up to check, thinking maybe she was on the porch or feeding the neighbor's cat or something. Nope. No car. No note. She came back around 8, hair windswept and cheeks flushed, claiming she took a walk to the lake. The lake's 15 minutes away. Then there was the perfume. For our anniversary 3 years ago, I bought her this woodsy, warm fragrance she loved, amber and cedar, soft and familiar. But lately, she'd been wearing something sharper. Floral. Expensive. I asked her about it once and she said she'd gotten a free sample and liked how it made her feel feminine. That's the word she used. I didn't argue, but it didn't sit right. It didn't smell like her. It didn't smell like us. Next came the lingerie. Now, let me be clear, I'm not the type to keep tabs on what my partner wears under her clothes. I never have been. But there's a difference between noticing and snooping. And I noticed. There were new sets. Satin. Lace. Tiny straps and unfamiliar colors. At first, I thought maybe she was trying to rekindle something, bring some spark back. But she never wore them for me. They weren't for me at all. She was more distant with me even when she was standing right next to me. Like she had mentally stepped out of the room and forgot to take her body with her. We stopped kissing. Not in an angry way, just quietly. Gradually. Until I realized we hadn't touched in weeks. And when I brought it up, she gave me the soft kind of smile you give a stranger who asks for directions. It's not you, she said. I'm just tired lately. Hormones. Hormones, my ass. Her phone habits changed too. Always face down. Always silenced. Always within reach. At night, she'd tuck it under her pillow like some kind of digital dream catcher. If I rolled over in bed, she'd instinctively shift so I couldn't see the screen. And when she got a message, she'd turn away slightly, her body language stiff as if her spine had locked up. Once, just once, I caught her pretending to be asleep. I knew because she was breathing in that fake, controlled rhythm people do when they're trying too hard. Her phone buzzed twice under the pillow. She didn't move, but her hand twitched toward it. Muscle memory. Then there was the Seattle trip. She told me it was a 2-day marketing conference, high-stress, packed itinerary. She even showed me the schedule she printed out: seminars, panels, breakout sessions. I bought it. I wished her well, told her to eat real food and avoid hotel coffee. When she came back, she was smiling, tan, glowing in a way Seattle doesn't allow. That city is gray 9 months out of the year. I've been there. She claimed she was lucky that the weather broke for one perfect weekend. But she wasn't in Seattle. I didn't know it yet, but I could feel it in my bones. That tan wasn't from Washington. And she never brought back a single branded pen, flyer, or conference badge, just a scarf I'd never seen before and a story that fell apart the moment I stopped nodding. Once I asked her what her favorite panel was. She blinked. Said, the one on brand alignment. That wasn't on the schedule. I remembered that. Another time, she got defensive when I joked that she and her coworkers probably skipped the talks and hit the hotel bar instead. Her face went pale for a second before she forced out a laugh. No one's drinking on these trips, she said. We're too busy surviving back-to-back meetings. She didn't look me in the eye when she said it. It started stacking, these little inconsistencies. Not proof, not outright lies. Just cracks in the story. Words said too carefully. Pauses between answers. The way she reached for explanations like they were on a shelf and she was out of reach. Even her sister, Lori, started acting weird. Lori and I used to be close in that brother-in-law who picks up her couch kind of way. But recently she'd become quiet around me. I starting. Changing the subject whenever I brought up Kelly's name. Once, I mentioned taking Kelly to that seafood place we both liked, and Lori said, "Oh, I thought you guys went last weekend?" We hadn't. Kelly told me she was working all weekend. I wanted to believe it was all in my head. That I was just being paranoid, jealous, insecure. The idea of confronting her terrified me, not because I feared the answer, but because I feared I'd become the kind of man who checks emails and tracks phone locations. I didn't want to be that guy. But I was becoming him, whether I liked it or not. Because when you're in a relationship and the ground underneath you starts to shift, you either learn to balance or you fall. And I was already falling. That morning, the day after I found the coat and the lipstick and the emails, I sat at the kitchen table and made a list. Literally. A bulleted list. Every odd moment I could recall from the past few months. I filled the page. Early mornings. New perfume. Hidden phone. Lingerie not meant for me. Trips that didn't add up. Lori's slip-ups. Changes in her smile. The tan. The quiet. I read it back to myself out loud. When I got to the end, the conclusion was simple. This wasn't a phase. This wasn't stress. This wasn't boredom. It was something else. Something bigger. Something I'd been living next to without seeing it for what it really was. A life happening right beside me, just out of frame. And I wasn't in it anymore. It was the silence that got to me first. Not the shouting, not the slamming doors, just the absence of noise. It had been 4 days since I found the lipstick, the hair, and those emails. 4 days since Kelly casually dismissed everything with a joke and walked up the stairs like she wasn't dragging the weight of a lie behind her. She hadn't mentioned it since. No attempts to explain further. No late-night sit-downs. She acted like nothing had happened. Like we were just two people living normal lives under the same roof, sharing groceries, splitting laundry, passing each other in the hallway like polite strangers. But that's the thing about silence, it gives you space. Space to think. Space to spiral. Space to notice details you'd normally ignore. She was still waking up early. Still wearing that unfamiliar perfume. Still hiding her phone like it was a ticking bomb under her pillow. I started noticing other things too. Subtle shifts. The way she started keeping a duffel bag in her trunk, always neatly packed with emergency clothes for work. The sudden interest in skincare and diet, her fridge drawer was filled with prepped meals and green smoothies labeled with dates. She even bought a second toothbrush, told me it was for her office drawer in case of late nights. But what really pushed me over the edge, what forced me to stop pretending, was what happened on a random Thursday evening. She fell asleep on the couch, phone still in hand, screen still lit. I couldn't help it. I leaned in. The phone wasn't locked. I don't know if it was luck or some subconscious act of sabotage on her part, but I tapped the screen and it opened right to her email. There it was, still logged into the same account I had seen on my laptop. Except this time I wasn't just a spectator. I was searching. It didn't take long. There, buried under promo emails and newsletters, was a confirmation for a beachfront rental. Same name as before, Trent. The reservation was recent. Very recent. It was for last weekend. The same weekend she told me she'd be attending an off-site networking seminar. The subject line was titled, Our Hideaway. 2 nights. Friday to Sunday. Check-in instructions. A photo of the exterior. My stomach clenched. I recognized the beach house instantly. I had seen it before on her cloud drive. Months ago, I helped her sync her phone to our joint photo account so she wouldn't lose anything important. She never disabled it. And now it betrayed her. I opened my own phone, opened the cloud, and there they were. Photos. The first one was her wearing that same blue sundress I didn't recognize. Her hair was curled. Windblown. Her sunglasses sat perched on her head. She was smiling, but not in the way she smiled with me. This smile was quieter. Like she wasn't performing. Like she was genuinely happy in a moment I had no part in. Next photo, her sitting on a porch, drink in hand. Barefoot. Her legs resting on someone's lap. Then I saw him. Trent. He was standing next to her in one of the *TS, his arms slung around her shoulders. Casual. Comfortable. Familiar. She was leaning into him like they had been doing that for years. I felt something break inside me then, not loudly. Just a small, sharp snap. Like a thread finally snapping after being pulled too tight for too long. I kept scrolling. There were more photos. A dinner spread. A sunset walk on the beach. A blurry selfie of them lying on what looked like a hammock, her cheek pressed to his chest. Each image had a date. Each one aligned perfectly with the weekend she had networked. Even worse? The booking confirmation email listed the card number used. It was mine. She'd used my credit card. She hadn't even bothered to cover her tracks. That was what gutted me more than anything. Not the betrayal. Not the lies. But the carelessness. It was like she didn't think I'd find out. Or worse, she didn't think I'd care. Like my heartbreak was just an inconvenience to be handled if it ever surfaced. I sat there, phone in hand, staring at the screen until my eyes blurred. She was still asleep. Peaceful. Dreaming. I didn't wake her. I didn't say a word. Instead, I got up quietly and went to the office. I turned on my laptop and started printing. Every photo. Every confirmation. Every email that mattered. I opened a folder, labeled it for Kelly, and began organizing. There were emails where they talked about how free she felt when she was with him. How dead she felt when she came home. There were jokes at my expense. Not cruel, not overt, but dismissive. Like I was a background character in their story. I saw one thread that chilled me to my core. She had written, "He still has no idea. I think part of me wants him to find out. I hate lying, but I can't stop either. Trent feels like the life I was supposed to have." I didn't sleep that night. I watched the sun come up from the kitchen window. I listened to the house creak and shift and settle like it always does in the early morning hours. The walls felt closer now, the air heavier. This house wasn't home anymore. It was a crime scene. The next morning I made a decision. I pulled her suitcase from the closet, her favorite one, the one with the dented corner she always complained about but never replaced. I packed it with what she'd need, clothes, toiletries, shoes. Just enough to say, go. Just enough to make it clear she wasn't coming back. Then I placed the folder on top. I didn't add a note. I didn't need to. The evidence spoke for itself. Around noon, she came home with her sister, Lori. I was sitting on the arm of the couch, keys in hand, jacket already on. Kelly paused in the doorway the moment she saw the suitcase. Lori's eyes flicked to the folder, then back to me. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Her silence wasn't confusion, it was confirmation. She knew. Kelly just stood there. No gasp. No dramatic scene. She didn't ask what was going on. She didn't demand answers. She looked at the suitcase. Then the folder. Then me. Her eyes didn't fill with tears. She just said, "Okay." That was it. "Okay." I stepped past them, opened the door, and walked out without looking back. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay. I ended up checking into a small motel on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. Faded curtains. A TV that barely worked. But it was quiet. And empty. And mine. I didn't open my phone. I didn't respond to any messages. I didn't want to know what she was thinking or if she'd even tried to reach me. I lay on the stiff motel bed, staring at the ceiling, and asked myself a question I hadn't had the courage to face until now. How long had I been gone from my own life? Because clearly, Kelly had left long ago. And I hadn't even noticed. It's a strange thing, watching your life shrink down to a single suitcase. Stranger still when you're the one doing the packing, but it's not for yourself. There was no rage when I folded Kelly's clothes, no shouting, no dramatic playlist echoing in the background. Just the soft hum of the heater and the occasional creak of the floor as I moved through the bedroom we used to share. It was like muscle memory. I knew which shoes she wore the most, which tops she layered when she was trying to look casual but put together. I even tucked in that dumb lavender hoodie she always claimed she was going to donate but never did because it was too cozy to quit. I added her makeup bag, her perfume, the charger for her tablet. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want her to have an excuse to come back for anything. Or maybe, if I'm honest, I wanted her to see how well I knew her even now. The folder went on top. The photos. The emails. The receipts. A printed copy of the beach house confirmation. I even highlighted the line that listed my name next to the card she used. I wanted her to notice that part. I wanted her to realize just how little she bothered to hide. When I zipped up the suitcase and set it by the door, I felt empty. Not sad. Not angry. Just done. Like I had finally stopped trying to fix a painting that someone else had walked away from months ago. I didn't plan to be there when she came back, but I couldn't seem to leave just yet. I don't know what I was waiting for. Closure? A fight? Some last-ditch apology that would make me feel something again? But all I got was the sound of tires crunching against the driveway around noon. I looked out the window and saw her car pull up, her sister Lori in the passenger seat. Lori was the first to step out. Her face looked tight, pulled into that unreadable expression you wear when you're not sure whose side you're supposed to be on. She glanced at the house like she expected to find it burned to the ground. Then Kelly stepped out. She was wearing jeans, a navy sweater, and the boots I bought her for Christmas. Her hair was pulled back into a lazy bun like she'd rushed getting ready. But her face, it wasn't anxious. Wasn't ashamed. It was blank. Like she was walking into an errand she didn't want to do but had already accepted. When she opened the door, I didn't say anything. She saw the suitcase. She saw the folder. She didn't even blink. Lori stepped inside behind her and froze when she noticed me still sitting on the couch. Kelly looked at me once, just one quick glance, then back at the suitcase. She didn't reach for it. She didn't move toward me. Just stood there like she was waiting for instructions. I picked up my keys and stood. "This is it," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. She didn't argue. She didn't ask why. She didn't say a word. "Everything's in there," I added, nodding toward the folder. Emails. Photos. Receipts. Credit card statements. I didn't want to leave room for confusion. Still nothing. Lori shifted beside her, uncomfortable. "Joel, maybe we could No, I cut in. Not sharply, just firmly. "There's nothing else to talk about." Lori opened her mouth again, probably to defend her sister or soften the edges of the moment, but Kelly raised a hand and stopped her. "I get it," she said quietly. And for a second, that cracked something in me. Not because of the words, but because of the way she said them. Calm. Controlled. Like this had all been scheduled in advance and she was just showing up for her appointment. I stepped past them both out onto the porch. The air was brisk, the kind that bites your skin just enough to remind you you're alive. I didn't look back. I climbed into my car and started the engine. The drive away was slow. Not because of traffic, there was none. Just me rolling down the neighborhood street at a crawl like I expected time to rewind if I lingered long enough. But it didn't. It never does. I didn't have a destination in mind, but I couldn't bear the idea of being near her. Of breathing the same air. I needed space. So I drove to the edge of town, past the gas stations, the empty lots, the rows of shuttered shops and flickering neon signs until I found a motel with faded shingles and a hand-painted vacancy sign. The clerk behind the counter looked half asleep and didn't ask questions. I paid for 2 nights in cash and took the key without a word. The room was exactly what you'd expect: musty carpet, cracked bathroom tiles, a lamp that leaned at a weird angle. But it was quiet. Blessedly, unreachably quiet. I dropped my bag on the floor and lay down on the stiff bed fully clothed. My phone buzzed twice. Then again. I didn't look. I already knew who it was. Her name on the screen wasn't going to tell me anything I didn't already know. That evening, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wallpaper. It had a pattern of green and tan flowers faded by years of cigarette smoke and cheap cleaning products. Somewhere in the distance, a train passed, its whistle low and haunting. I felt like that whistle was for me. Like it was calling time on the life I thought I had. I ordered food I barely touched. Flipped through TV channels I couldn't follow. Tried to sleep but couldn't. Not because of grief. Grief is loud, and this was something else. This was a vacuum. The next morning, I opened the motel blinds just enough to let in a sliver of light. It caught the dust floating in the air like tiny particles of everything I just lost. And for the first time in 2 days, I checked my phone. 10 missed texts. 3 voicemails. 1 from Lori. The rest from Kelly. The last one just said, "You could have just asked." I stared at that message for so long, the screen dimmed. You could have just asked. Like it was my job to pull the truth out of her. Like I had failed her by not being more curious about her betrayal. I almost laughed. Instead, I turned the phone off completely. That afternoon, I called a lawyer. Not because I wanted revenge. Not because I wanted to punish her. I just needed to start moving. I needed this thing to have a shape, a process. Something I could hold in my hands instead of carrying around in my chest. I scheduled a consultation. Then I emailed the landlord. Told him I'd be vacating the house. Said I didn't want to renew the lease when it ended next month. He asked if everything was okay. I didn't reply. The motel let me extend my stay another week. I started looking for small places outside of town, places near the coast, or maybe somewhere no one knew my name. I wanted to wake up where the air was clean and my past didn't live in the walls. I made a list. I didn't tell anyone where I was. Somehow, that felt like the first honest thing I'd done in weeks. The motel room was nothing more than a box with a bed and a humming fridge, but it was the first place in weeks where I could finally breathe without wondering what she was hiding. There were no soft footsteps above me, no half-whispers behind closed doors, no perfume trails clinging to the hallway. Just silence. And it wasn't the heavy, heart-in-your-throat silence that filled our house near the end. It was clean. Blank. Peaceful. The first 2 days were strange. My body kept bracing for a fight, some last-ditch confrontation or desperate plea. But none came. Kelly didn't show up at the motel. She didn't beg at the door or call me crying. She didn't even send a real apology. Just short, confused messages spaced out across the day. "Can we just talk? You don't have to leave like this. I didn't expect you to react this way." React this way? Like walking out on a betrayal made me the unstable one. I didn't reply. By the 3rd day, I was exhausted from doing nothing. It turns out grief isn't always loud, it can also be still, stale, like standing water. I needed movement. I needed to start chiseling something out of the wreckage of my life. So I made 3 calls. First, to the lawyer. I'd Googled a firm the night I left. They had decent reviews and a receptionist who answered with an actual human voice, already a good sign. I told them I was looking to file for separation, maybe full divorce, depending on how things went. When the woman on the line asked for grounds, I told her the truth. My wife's in love with someone else. There was a pause. Not awkward, just professional. "I'm sorry to hear that," she said. "Let's get you in as soon as possible." I scheduled the consultation for the following Monday. Second, I called a courier service. I didn't want to go back to the house to retrieve her leftover things, and I sure as hell didn't want her backtracking into my space under the pretense of just grabbing a few items. So I paid to have the rest of her stuff packed and delivered to her mom's place across town. The guy I spoke to didn't ask many questions, just confirmed the address, told me he'd take care of everything. Third, I called my brother. We hadn't spoken much over the last year. Life had gotten in the way. He'd moved north for work, gotten married, had a kid. But when I told him what happened, he didn't hesitate. "Get out of there, man," he said. "Come stay here for a while if you need to." Seriously. "The guest room's yours." I didn't take him up on it. Not yet. But the offer meant something. Just knowing there was a place I could land reminded me that I wasn't completely alone. That night, I drove past our old neighborhood, not to spy, just to confirm what I already knew. Her car was gone. Not just for the night. Gone. The house was dark. No porch light, no shadows in the windows. I sat across the street in the parked car, engine running, and stared at that empty shell of a home where we'd played house for 5 years. Where we'd made pancakes on Sundays and argued over paint samples and promised each other things we didn't keep. I couldn't picture her there anymore. I couldn't even picture myself. The next morning, Lori texted me. "Hey Joel, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I thought you should know. Kelly's staying at Trent's. No apology. No qualifiers. Just confirmation." Like she wanted to remove all doubt with a single sentence. I stared at that message for a long time. I wasn't surprised. I think I always knew that's where she'd go next. But hearing it out loud, seeing it typed, clear as daylight, still hit me like a slap across the face. She had moved on. Not with guilt. Not with hesitation. Just moved. Like changing apartments. There were no apologies. No admissions. No, I didn't mean to hurt you. Nothing. She just left one version of her life and stepped into another like it was a wardrobe change. And me? I was the coat she left behind. It was that night. Alone in the motel, lights dimmed, phone face down on the nightstand, that I truly understood. She hadn't left me for Trent. She left because it was easy, because it gave her an exit hatch from a version of life she no longer wanted. And I was too trusting, too slow, too loyal to see the signs before the door slammed shut. There was no betrayal of the century twist here. No secret baby. No burner phone or love letters in the vents. It was simpler than that. Colder. She stopped choosing me. And then she made sure someone else was there waiting when she finally worked up the nerve to let go. So I let go, too. I didn't just delete her number. I removed the photos, the saved addresses, the reminders on the calendar for her birthday and our anniversary. I cleared the grocery list we shared. I unfollowed her on every social account, muted anyone who might post photos of her with him. Not out of bitterness. Not to erase her. Just to protect myself. People talk about heartbreak like it's this wild, passionate rupture. But for me, it was more like frostbite. Slow. Numb. Until one day I looked down and realized something had already died and I hadn't noticed. It was the end of the week when the box came. A small package delivered to the front desk of the motel. The clerk called me down. No note. Just a return address from her mom's house. Inside was a small stack of items. A watch I'd lost and thought gone. A card I wrote her last Christmas. And a hoodie she used to wear to bed. There was no letter. Just those pieces. Should have felt like closure. Instead, it felt like a refund. Here's what's left of what we were. Keep it or toss it. Your choice. I put the watch on, tossed the card, folded the hoodie and left it in the dresser drawer of the motel before I checked out. The next day, I sat across from the lawyer in a sterile office with a slow-turning ceiling fan and a desk full of divorce packets. He asked me how I wanted to proceed. Fast, I said. Clean. As little contact as possible. He nodded. You have proof. I handed over the folder. He flipped through the contents, eyes scanning efficiently. She won't contest this, he said. You've got more than enough. I left the office with a manila envelope and a dull ache behind my eyes. Outside, the sun was starting to set, and the light caught the edge of a street sign near the parking lot. Newberry Road. New. I liked that word. It didn't mean happy. Didn't mean healed. It just meant possible. That evening, I booked a short-term rental across state. 2 months. Close enough to finish paperwork, far enough to start thinking in a new direction. The place wasn't much, but it had a window that faced the ocean and enough quiet to make me feel human again. I packed lightly, left behind the things that didn't feel like mine anymore. And just like that, I started driving. Cutting the cord didn't come with ceremony. No one clapped. No one marked the moment. But I did. Quietly, calmly. I looked in the rearview mirror at the road behind me and said, "We're done." Then I didn't look back again.